we all are members of where we live. The difference isn't, who's included and who's excluded. It's not an exclusive thing.
The second that watch switches over and I just hear Grayson whisper, "Get him." And then I'm not joking, a fourth one. I had 20 deer in the field at one time. I've never seen 20 deer in one place at one time before.
The difference is who knows it and who doesn't.
Or who chooses to know it.
Welcome back to the Ozark podcast. Happy January. We are in the new year. It is 2025, and we've already had 2 episodes be released, and those were with Tom Aley and Dave Woods up in Missouri, diving into a cave.
Actually diving into a cave.
Actually going in, spelunking, learning about caves and karst topography. And man, I really kind of had a generic idea of what we were going to hear going into that, but I feel like my whole mind was opened up to 100 other possibilities, like what could have existed and how did this all get here and how much time has it taken for everything to form.
Mm-hmm.
I was just blown away, and I kind of wondered, like, we got to go into the cave, and so it was really impactful for us to go in and see it all and hear it all. And we took some videos that we will be sharing on Instagram and social media, so you guys will get to see that a little bit more. But dude, I had so much fun down there. I don't know. What did you think of the cave episodes that we just did?
I mean, the cave itself was fascinating. I think the thing that was the most fascinating for me was the history encapsulated in the cave that they're excavating out.
Mm-hmm.
Like the claws from a short-faced bear. All the species that are still living and all of that, great.
Yeah.
So cool. But the fact that you're looking at, what do they say, Pleistocene era artifacts?
Yeah.
It's just wild to me that there were critters in that cave making a living before Native Americans.
I know.
Like before Native Americans were in the Ozarks.
I know.
Like in the Ice Age times.
Yeah.
Just awesome. That was cool.
I after that, I had to come home and Google some of the terms that he was saying, like the eras, and I was like, what exactly is the Pleistocene era? And like, what's before that? And all this stone and geology is really interesting once you dive into it. There's so many different, like, I don't know, naming conventions, and like some of them are called like Mississippian era or Pennsylvania shale, or I don't know, it's just all kinds of different things. There's a Fayetteville shale, and they're specific to these areas and time periods that these all would have happened. And that's just a whole new world for me. I felt like I was back in school in class, but it was in a much more hands-on way. And that's important for me because I was ADD in history class and definitely geology. That was not an exciting class for me. So that was a fun one. And then I loved how it all connected back to, of course, we talk about hunting and fishing a lot. And so tying in like what happens above the ground with the habitat and what's good for the animals is also good for what's going on underneath the ground in the water. And that ultimately comes back to our towns and cities where we drink and recreate and things like that.
All connected.
Golly, man.
I always talk about it.
I love when we like find new avenues to explore that connection.
That's a good point. Before we get any further, y'all just listened to 3.5 minutes of cave?
Yeah.
As we talked about the last 2 episodes, that was a lot more than 3.5 minutes of cave. If you're a new listener, which we've learned as we've looked at numbers, kind of concluding last year and going into this year, is a lot of y'all, a lot of people. You presumably just heard months of deer hunting content with some sprinkled in foraging and cooking and history and culture, and then we go to a cave and we're talking caves and all of that. And so, kind of to kick off the new year with the new seasons, and I know we're at the end of January, but the new outdoor season, if you will. Kyle, will you explain briefly what in the world this is all about and why in the world we do it in the first place?
Yeah.
Because we might have some people going, I came for the deer content, and then I got thrown caves.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So what are we about?
I will give my best take on it, and I will need your help to help clarify. Hopefully it's pretty simple, but we of course are 2 guys who we hunt and fish, and so that was kind of how we started. But once we got into that, things have evolved over time. And so what we've realized in all of the things that we're interested in talking about, and that a lot of our community of listeners that have listened or have been guests, what we've found is the common thread amongst everyone that we all gravitate to is people want to live in a connected way to the world and the natural world, really. And so in the Ozarks, people have always lived that way. I mean, you go back to the first people groups that ever lived here, Native Americans, and just the way that they were always in tune what was going on, the seasons. They knew, what was available for food as far as plants, but also animals, the breeding times, the blooming times. Like they were just tuned into that because they were always outside. They were living it. So people have always lived connected to the land, even up until, frontiersman times and people coming over here. Carving out their life, white settlers and the Spanish and the French as they explored through the country. That's always been the common thread. Today, though we still seek and desire that connection to the land, we've probably actually certainly have never been more disconnected to the land. And that's because, we all live these modern lives and, we have phones and internets and we go work in corporate jobs and behind a computer screen. Some of us are more outside, but we're disconnected from our food. We're disconnected from outside. We just spend less and less time outside. And so as guys like you and me who have grown up here in the Ozarks, we have a long history. Our families, I'm a 6th generation Ozarker.
Yep.
You're a multi-generation Ozarker.
I think 5 is the official count.
5.
I confirmed with my family over Christmas.
Okay. So our families have been here for a long time and used to be those families living close to the land. And so we have seen firsthand through our families how that has changed and feel like we have a really unique insight into some of that. And so we wanted to kind of explore that and rediscover some of that connection and how it is all connected. And for us, that looks like talking a lot about hunting and fishing. And that is the view that we go into because that's what we're interested in. But we have also learned that there's a lot of other things that there's a reason we even like hunting and fishing. And that's a part of our culture and our history. And there's reasons for all of that. And so we basically, we cover a lot of different stuff, and it's going to seem random from week to week sometimes when it's like caves, and next week it could be mushrooms, and it could be trapping, and it could be fishing, and it's going to look like a lot of different stuff. But what it all has in common, in my view, is the place that it happens in the land. And you can't separate your life if you live in a place, though you may try. You can't separate your life and its impact and its linkage to the dirt and the land that you live on, because that is where you are, that is where you exist. And so there is that connection there. So that's how I think about it.
That's perfect. And at the end of the day, we exist, especially why we do a podcast and get to meet all these people and be placed in your ears once a week. We do that to help you, listener, become more connected to your place. If that's in the Ozarks, which I know majority of y'all who listen are, or if that's even outside of the Ozarks, I think you can take some of the principles and stories and tactics and all of that to be more fully integrated into the lifestyle that you hope and desire to live. And that could look like any number of things. It could be the guy who really just wants to fish every other weekend. It could look like the girl who grows her own food and has a garden and goes out and harvests a couple of deer every fall. It could look like any number of people in between that who enjoy and appreciate where they are placed because of its unique history and culture and perspective and flora and fauna and landscape and wildlife and all of the stuff. But we love the Ozarks, which is why we're committed to focusing on the Ozarks. That's why we talk about the Ozarks.
Yeah.
Because we believe that that's an important place.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there's so many other places that are unique and have unique things about them. And hopefully as you listen to us, if you are in those other places, you can recognize like, oh yeah, we have something kind of similar or similar. It's unique, but it's similar in that same way that it is unique. Like every region has these unique identifying features. And so hopefully you can connect with that. I really like, we've talked about it a few times on here. I don't think we've ever actually done like a full review of Wendell Berry and his work, but he talks a lot about like belonging to a place, and and he frames it from a lot of the times about like agriculture and things like that. But he also talks about this idea of like a membership of we all are members of where we live. It's the difference isn't, who's included and who's excluded. It's not an exclusive thing. The difference is who knows it and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And so,
or who chooses to know it.
Yeah, and who
recognize
chooses to recognize it and live in it. And so we all belong to, if you live here, we all belong to this place. We all belong to the Ozarks. And in doing that and recognizing that you are a member of this community in both, humanity, but also naturally and in the environment, if you recognize that, you recognize that there's a responsibility that comes with that and a stewardship that comes with that. And so, yeah, I think it's not like it's a self-identifying thing of like, yeah, I'm a member of this community. I'm a member of the outdoors. I'm a member of, the natural world, and I choose to live that way. And I want to like learn more about it and be curious about where I live. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Is just be curious and talk to people who know a lot more about
It's great.
these places.
Connected place. We've never lived more disconnected, and the Ozarks have never changed more rapidly than they have in the last few decades.
Yeah.
And we're trying to, as best we can, preserve and hold on and even redirect some of our thinking and technology and things we value to what the Ozarks have always valued, of natural resources and good community and good people and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a really long, roundabout way to answer. That's why we talk about deer hunting and fishing and trapping and foraging and linguistics and geography and history and psychology and all of the kind of stuff. That's all rooted here. That's why we do it.
Yeah. I think I hope that it's fun and unique and refreshing for people who maybe they do listen to other podcasts that are all about, deer hunting.
Yeah, it's a hunting podcast.
Yeah, or all about fishing. And I hope that us trying to be a little bit more broad, but also very, very specific in the place that we're being broad, is a kind of a refreshing take, because it is all very connected. And if you only ever think about things from a deer hunter's perspective, you can miss some of like the really, really cool things going on around and in that same, in that same habitat or that same place.
Yeah. And you can go as far as to mismanage everything that's going on in that one habitat or place.
That's a great
to
point.
The detriment of other species.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. So that's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do. So this kind of internal format a little bit is something we're trying to solidify better. I'd say maybe solidify more in the coming year with, like you heard, 2 kind of normal guest episodes, and then a little bit more recap, but also conversation around news and stories and things that are coming up in the Ozarks specific to the outdoor space. And so this episode will be sort of brief, but I think we should try to follow that format best we can. And so we're going to share some stories, and then we're going to end on news. Is that what we landed on?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's been some stuff going on in the Ozarks that, and specifically, of course, there's always stuff going on in the Ozarks, but there's been some stuff from guests that we've had on and stories that you guys have heard that will just be like a brief update. I don't really have a ton to say about them, more just like, hey, did you know? And we've also got some stories from the last couple of weeks. We were off. If you didn't notice, we took off 2 weeks for the podcast and enjoyed some time with our families, traveling a little bit, but also just being outside. We had a snowstorm a couple weeks ago. I know you and I both were outside sledding, but also hunting, and you were duck hunting. I was deer hunting. So we've got some fun stories from those outings. And so I think let's do stories first, and then we can kind of wrap up with the news. And we'll keep it like that.
Perfect. Tell us your deer hunting story.
So
deer hunting's wrapping up.
No. We got to do ducks first.
For real? We're doing ducks first?
Because you've got 2 stories and I've only got 1, so you got to sandwich me.
Sure.
Because otherwise you'll just be talking for a long time.
Sure.
So you were duck hunting.
I was duck hunting.
We don't duck hunt a lot.
I'm a bad duck hunter.
and in the Ozarks, there's really not a lot of great duck hunting.
No, but okay, when this episode releases, it'll be the last day of duck hunting. 2 days of duck hunting. Is that right?
It's coming out on the 29th.
I think it's closed February 1st. Is that right?
Hold on. I was just looking at it today.
I'd say pull that up real quick. This matters.
Look, I've still got it open right here. January 31st.
Okay, so there will be a couple more days of duck.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good. You got
this is in Arkansas.
Yeah, in Arkansas. You got 2 more days of duck.
Don't know about Missouri.
If you're in Arkansas, by the time this releases, if things are frozen over in the ponds and in the fields and whatnot, go find some open water.
Mm-hmm.
There will be ducks, because the duck hunting is poor in the Ozarks. Fair, especially in the corner of Arkansas that we're in.
Yeah.
It gets way better when you go way more south and way more east.
Yeah.
But
I think the Missouri Ozarks probably have a little bit better opportunities that maybe we just don't know about because we're down here and they keep it pretty hush hush.
It's more consistent. Well, I know there's some more opportunities for sure. But to that point, duck hunting where we're at specifically is not great.
Yeah.
It's not in like the main flyway, but there are ducks. And when things freeze, this is why I got excited about the date. Have you seen that mega like vortex of cold air that's coming our way?
Yeah.
That everybody's talking about and freaking out about? That's going to freeze some stuff up.
Sure.
And when that happens, I guarantee you, if we find some open water, we can get ducks in. We did this last year. All the ponds froze in a small, unnamed farming community around the outskirts of the greater Northwest Arkansas metro. And all those ducks like those ponds, and all those ponds are done. And so some decoys out in the river, and limit of ducks.
Or creek.
2-man limit. So just take that, if you will.
There
Try
you
to
go.
kill a duck.
There you go.
But duck hunting here in the Ozarks, where we're at, is not great.
Especially relative to more available areas.
Southeast Arkansas.
Yeah.
Farm country. So I went to the flatlands, rang in the new year on the flatlands of Arkansas.
Were you there for New Year's Eve?
Well, no, I drove down starting at 5 a.m. on New Year's Day.
Okay, gotcha.
So in my mind, New Year's Eve for us in the season is go to bed at 9.
Yeah.
We have small children. But got up, drove down. I love the Ozarks. There's something so just beautiful and rolling and different and rugged. There's something equally as amazing as like flat, muddy, soily, rich farm country. This like South Arkansas is cool and it's quiet, and there's just, I know, in the dead of winter, there's not any farming happening, so there's really not much going on. People just kill ducks and deer. It's neat down there. I mean, flat, still, quiet ducks. What else could you ask for?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so one story. I go with my father-in-law and brother-in-law. We try to go every year. It's kind of become a tradition. And it's an invite that's truly extended, I think, to my father-in-law, but we kind of get the invite of the invite because we've made friends with like the paying members of the duck club.
Okay.
And it's not the type of duck club that might, or it may or may not come to mind. When I grew up hearing duck club, I was told we don't have the type of money for a duck club. And so that's why we don't duck hunt. So in my mind, I associated duck club with like big deal, fancy, expensive clubs with a big clubhouse and, a game room and a card table and all the sunken blinds with Blackstone griddles in them and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why I was told by my family, that's why we don't duck hunt. We can't afford it. We don't pay dues to a duck club. This duck club is what I would hope a duck club is. It's like deer camp. It's an old house on some land, a bunch of like-minded dudes who like to hunt and like to eat good food and like to watch football, and that's all you do.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're paying members, and I know they lease land and all that kind of stuff from this farmer, but it's just a crew of good old boys, and we shoot shotguns all day, and it's awesome.
Nice.
So my one story is this. There is this spot that I've seen on my Onyx map every time we've been down there, and I've tried to convince now all these men who they're set in their ways. They got their spot. They go where they go. They go where it's easy, and they kill ducks, and they're good at it. But I try every year, like, can we please go explore all of this water?
Yeah.
Like, we have all of these acres. Can we take the boat? Can we do this? Like, I want to go adventure, right? It's just in me. I want adventure. I've always been told, no, we don't go to that hole. It's too hard to get to. You got to hike in the water. Whatever. So I told my brother-in-law, we're going to go find that daggum hole. We're going to go hunt it. I don't care if we have to be the dogs ourselves.
Yeah.
We're going to go hunt that spot because I I can't go another year without getting back there. And so day 2 of the hunt, first day, a lot of work for very little ducks. And so the next morning I was fired up and ready to go. I got them up early. We loaded our guns, got our walking sticks, got our headlamps, took off for the woods. And it was a waist deep through the timber and then through the marshy cattails hike for I don't even know how long. We got lost one point and we're like spinning in circles, and you know how much I
was
love
about to
that.
say, were you freaking out?
Freaking out. Which I was freaking out for different reasons, because I know if we went one way or one direction long enough, you're either going to hit the river or hit a road.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going to get out. I just didn't want to miss the sunrise. Like I wanted to be there for when it was going to be legal shooting light.
It's still dark at this point.
Still dark.
Yeah, okay.
So we're hiking hundreds of yards through all this mess and all this stuff and get to these cattails, and it's a hole, it's a pond really, but it's connected by a slough to the main channel of one of these big South Arkansas rivers. And it might technically be a creek. It's not like the Cache or the White or like a big river, but it's a river.
Yeah.
And we get in there, and it's me and my brother-in-law Grayson, and then one of my father-in-law's buddies, John, call him Coach. He was a collegiate football coach for a long time. So it was me and Grayson and Coach.
John, it's a great name for a coach.
Yeah, classic coach name.
John.
And we didn't have a blind. We didn't have a dog. We carried in 5 decoys, just thinking we'll throw them out there and see what happens. We don't have a jerk string. I don't know if decoys matter. I don't know if calling matters. I'm not a duck guy.
Yeah.
I'm really not. And I'll show you the video. We get into the cattails and pull up our face mask and all of that to where we are just fully hidden in grass that is higher than our heads.
Yeah.
And stand there silently, waiting for the sunrise to come. And by the time we get set up and turn off our headlamps and kind of do the initial, like, all right, we made it, we're feeling good, we're whispering. As soon as we turn off those lights, ducks start coming in. And it is for the next 25 minutes, because we were 25 minutes before legal shooting light.
Mm-hmm.
For the next 25 minutes, it started with 1, and it ended with, no joke, 80+ ducks on the water.
No way.
In that one spot.
Right in front of you?
us.
Oh,
And
how far away?
So, I mean,
Like
so
within-
close that we couldn't move.
Yeah.
Or they were going to bust. Every one of us was going to bust. We had ducks landing in the cattails, because we're standing in water.
Yeah.
Up to our mid-thigh.
Yeah.
Landing in the cattails directly beside us and just whack, 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 whack,
You
all
can
around.
Just grab one.
You could hear every wing beat, every call, every splash, every swimming. I mean, you could hear it all. It was the most surreal experience of a pre-sunrise time I've ever had in my life. It was awesome.
That is so cool.
Sun was coming up. They're all coming in. They're all coming in from the same direction. And it's not like 1 or 2 ducks at a time. It started that way, and then it was like, here's 12, here's 20. Just like masses of these ducks.
Dude.
And I have these headphones because I've gotten weird about like wanting to make sure my ears are protected around guns.
Mm-hmm.
But they, people know what they are. Trying to think of the brand, Walkers or Walks or something like that. It looks like a podcasting mic headphone, but it has a mic inside so where you can whisper and hear everything. But then as soon as you shoot, if it's a loud enough decibel, within 0.02 of a second or whatever, it shuts off.
Yeah.
And so everything was even magnified in my ear because I wanted to hear Grayson be able to, whisper as we were hunting. So I'm hearing every single sound, and you're watching them come in, and it was amazing. Well, as soon as legal shooting light happens, guns are loaded. We've been ready. We've been standing there motionless for 25 minutes.
Yeah, just ready to go.
And I'm like checking the watch. I mean, every time it's like as soon as it hits the second that watch switches over, we're going. That happens, and I just hear Grayson whisper, "Get him." And
get him.
Guns start going off, and every single one of those ducks comes off the water at the same time.
Oh my god!
And we, at the minimum, single man limited on that first shootout.
Yeah,
because it was just duck after duck after duck. And then we have a bunch of dead ducks in the water and no way to get them. And so we wait for the wind to blow them our direction, or we just kind of assume or decide, well, I mean, more ducks may fly in. It looks like a duck.
Right.
But we have to get them. And so over the next couple hours, it was your typical duck hunt. Groups of 4 or 5 mallards and stuff would come in, and we'd get a couple and other types of, spoonies and whatever else. I don't know, all the ducks.
Yeah.
They come in and we shoot them. It was awesome.
There were birds.
It was so cool.
Dude.
And there was a couple of shots that Grayson made that I wish we had a video guy. I wish we had a video guy for the ducks just landing.
Yeah.
But he was making some where I wasn't even raising my shotgun. I was like, I'm not even going to try that shot. And he's blasting them out of the sky.
No way. He's a sharpshooter.
Sharpshooter. So then to get them, we couldn't hike into this water because it's too deep. We had to hike out, grab a side-by-side, drive down to another blind, get a John boat with a paddle, and paddle upstream against the current and the wind to get through the slough into this hole to pick up all of our ducks. And so our duck hunt was done we had limited by like 8, but we didn't have all the ducks in the hand and everything we needed by close to noon because it was so much work to get back up in there.
That's a ton of work.
And then that was like the hunt of the week for sure.
Dude.
So
that was day 2?
It's day 2.
And how many days were you down there?
Down there for 4.
Okay.
So I think hunted for 3.
Yeah. Dude, that is awesome. Yeah. Man, that is cool. I've not duck hunted a lot and have definitely never seen that many birds in a single sit.
It was wild.
But
I haven't either, and I've done it 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
That sounds really special.
It was crazy.
That's cool, man. Well, I'm glad that y'all got some. I didn't see that you brought any back for me as far as meat goes.
They're in my freezer.
But
I got you.
Did you actually?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, I got a whole gallon Ziploc bag for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I like duck. I've only had it probably a handful of times, but it is delicious.
It's some good stuff.
Do you do your blueberry red wine reduction with it?
I haven't yet, but I'm going to now that you said it.
That's if you don't know, that's Plunkett's go-to for any and all wild game.
One of these days, I'm going to post that recipe, and y'all can all try it.
It is delicious.
It rocks.
The smoked backstrap that you did for Friendsgiving, phenomenal. I think that is the best venison recipe I have ever had.
Thank you. That's high praise.
Yeah, I'll say that.
Makes a man feel good. I can post that too.
Yeah.
One of these days, we're going to do a cookbook. We've got to.
Yeah, we should.
Just one of these days.
We should.
I'll put that in there.
Okay. I like it.
Give somebody a reason to buy it. I heard years ago this was the best venison recipe.
Dude, that is phenomenal. We were eating on that for a couple days after.
Yeah, it's some good stuff. But yeah, that's my Ozark man goes to flatland story where
you got it done.
I got it done.
The mountain man got it done.
It's a fun time.
That's cool. I'm glad y'all got it done down there.
It's a good time. Well, now let's hear your story.
All right,
because you were gonna tell it. Well, you're gonna tell it.
I'm gonna.
Just got out of order.
Yeah, we did.
You were going for some 4-legged ducks.
I was doing a 4-legged duck without a bill and some hooves and maybe some horns. I can't even imagine what that would look like, if you were imagining a duck.
A long-legged platypus.
This was so, actually, I just remembered this. So I went deer hunting. This was during the snowstorm that we had, and dude, there's just nothing like sitting out in the woods when it's snowing. And there's snow on the ground. Everything is white. The contrast is so rich. I mean, I had cardinals and woodpeckers flying around, and you could see them like you were looking through a 4K camera. It was just picturesque. It was perfect. So I'm sitting there watching the squirrels, watching the birds, and we're going after deer. I've got a buddy with me, buddy named George, and he's hanging out with me. He's tagged out, fully tagged out, like shot his full limit of deer. And
good for him.
He was like, I just want to come, and you know what? When a deer walks out, I'll film it on my phone. I just want to go hang. I was like, that's great, man. Come on. So I took him down to my property, and that he hadn't been down there, but it's by the creek there, and so great morning. Really slow though. We didn't see a single deer the whole time we sat. We sat till daylight till probably about 9:30. And at that point, it's kind of just like, I'd like to get down and look around. It's been a few weeks since I've been back, to this property, and want to show George around. So we walk the creek. I'm showing him like, hey, here's where I got this beaver last year in this slough. And I'm like, here's this, and here's this drainage, and here's where I shot. So I'm just telling stories. We're walking around, and we've climbed down, and we kind of go to like throw stuff in the truck, and we're cruising out of the property nearby where my stand is, and as we're driving away, he goes, stop, there's deer over there. And you know my property, but it's part of it's up the hill and in the mountain in the hills, and there's a holler, but then part of it is down by the creek and it's just flat. And so there's about 100 yards of just flat to the creek, and they really just walk that up and down the river because they're kind of pinched between the river that's a barrier and the steep mountain range, the hills that go up.
It's a pain to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so he sees him pretty far off. Truly, I was like, I see him, and I looked, and I could not, this naked eye, and I couldn't spot him for a minute after. I was just blown away. I was like, dude, how did you see those way over there? Well, and it helped because it's snow, and so they're just, they're a dark figure against the snow. And so I finally pinpointed where he was looking, and we saw him. And I was like, man, I can't guarantee it, but usually when I see deer over there, they are headed this way. There's nowhere else that they really go. And I was like, they may be spooked. They probably saw our truck, but they don't really seem bothered by it. I mean, their heads were down. They were, sticking their nose in the snow and eating on whatever's under it. So George was like, well, you still want to leave? Because at that point we were rolling out. We were leaving. I was like, what the heck? We got time. Let's get out. So we drive up, park the truck behind some trees, hidden, but it's still close as we could to come right back. And I get my bow back out. And I'm going stealth mode, so I leave my pack, I leave everything, and I'm just like, we're just gonna ground stalk this. And I don't want to climb up back in the blind because we didn't have all day, but you never know. Sometimes it takes them an hour to work over there. So I was like, let's just get aggressive and see what we can do. This will be fun. So I go light, I leave my pack, which actually I had taken off my binos, and I was like, I don't really need my binos. I see the deer already. So we get out, and we work our way back to where we were. We could still see them. They're not spooked, and they're just slowly working their way this way. I'm like, man, this really might happen. So we set up and we kind of game plan. We look on the map, like where we think they're at, and then we've got this really lucky curve in the tree line that there's a place where I can hide. If I go off to my left, if I'm looking straight on at them, I can go to my left and hug the tree line tight, and it goes to this knob that sticks out in the tree line that I can set up, and they will work their way. And so I would say they're probably about 150, 200 yards away, and I can get to that knob, and that would maybe cut it in half. So they'd only have to come about 100 yards, and hopefully that saves us a little bit of time. So I get down, I'm crouching, I'm going through the snow. It's quiet as can be because that soft, fluffy snow is just all the leaves under it. They're all wet, and it's just quiet. It's perfect. Honestly, every time it snows from now on, it's going to make me want to ground stalk because it is just so.
Oh, I believe that.
You can see them so well. And if you can keep an eye, and they can see you too, but if you can keep an eye on what they're doing and what they're tuned into and know your features, I think you can really have a good opportunity. So I get down, I'm working this tree line, and I finally get close to where I'm at that kind of bend in the tree line where I'm behind it. There's some cedars I'm hiding behind. And I'm looking. George, he stayed back behind because he's like, I don't really need to be that close. I can be your spotter, and I can text you if something changes or if they spook or they alarm or something like that. So we're kind of playing this game, and I work my way up there. I finally get to where I want to be, where I really don't want to push any closer, and I just hunker down. Well, sure enough, the 2 deer that we saw at first becomes 3, becomes 4, 3 more walk out, becomes 7, 2 more walk out, becomes 9. All does or button bucks at this point. No like hardhorn antler deer. And I'm like, man, dude, this is happening. They're slowly working their way here. So I get set up, and I'm just waiting at this point. I finally can start to see them kind of come around the tree line, but they're far out in the opening, in the clearing, probably about 70 yards. And they could, remember I said it's about 100 yards from the river to the hillside. So I'm up against the hillside. So they really could walk out far away to where they're out of bow range. So I'm just hoping and praying they get close. This one button buck, just young and dumb, he's just bouncing around. He's coming close. He's leaving. I see he's a button buck. I'm not going to shoot him. I'm waiting for a big mature doe. And the button buck kind of circles around. He doesn't see me. And then sure enough, I'm seeing this big mature doe, not out in the middle, hugged up, tied to the tree line, just like a mature doe would do. And it's just walking along. Wind's perfect, blowing, the other way. And I just feel good. And so doe walks out, and they are now out in the open. I'm in the tree line. And so I've realized now that, oh crap, I don't have my rangefinder because I left it in my pack. And so I'm just best guessing it. And, you can do pretty okay with that, but it's really, really hard when there's not features in between you. It's just open field. And so this doe starts coming, and the first opening that I got, I'm gonna take because she could bust me at any moment, and there's all kinds of deer behind her. So she walks out, and I think it's about 30 yards. I pull back just perfect. I'm looking at her. She doesn't see me at all. I let it rip. And that arrow flies so true, so pure. I felt so good about it. And I watched that arrow, and it dove, and I hit the white hairs on her, but it went straight under her. I probably missed by an inch. And so I'm like, dang it, man, that is just tough.
Didn't even hit her.
No,
just shaved her.
Just shaved her, and it was so close. And it's one of those shots that like I can still see it. I can still remember vividly how that went. But I miss, but a little bit of me feels good because I didn't like wound her, and it wasn't a terrible shot. It was a clean miss. But I was like, dang it. And so I'm like, she must have just been further. Well, she runs off, and all the other deer are on high alert now. And they are on high alert, but they don't know what happened. They just heard a noise, and they saw one deer run away. And so what they actually do is they go up into the tree line, into the woods where I am now, and they're about 50 yards away. And they're looking down in the field like, what the heck was that? And they're just all noses up. They start blowing a little bit, but they keep working my way. And so I put out a young doe call, and just a kind of a bleat to let them know that like, oh, I'm just a young doe over here making a noise. Like, don't worry, but just keep coming this way. And so they kind of relaxed a little bit, and they started working their way back towards me. And this one doe got high, not the same one, got high on the ridge and started walking up, looking straight down at the field. Has no idea, but they're super, super high alert now. And she's coming right towards me on the same trail. Like, I'm going to bear hug this deer here in a second. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a second shot at this. What are the odds of this? So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting. She goes behind a tree, and right as she goes behind the tree, I go to lift up my bow to pull back, but she didn't stay behind the tree. She just popped right out the other side, and she saw me immediately as I'm not drawn back at all. And so as I'm going up, I get full draw, and she immediately just flies out of there. And so I ended up basically, she flew out. She went to about 50 yards, was looking straight at me, blowing, just, trying to just let the whole world know that I'm sitting over there and I'm dangerous. And I basically, at that point, was like, I don't have time to keep working this. I'm busted at this point. And so I back out of there. I text George, and I'm like, all right, man, we got to get out of here. But I don't know. It was so fun. I didn't have success. I didn't harvest a deer. I had a good shot, and I paced it out later. I ended up finding my arrow, and it was about 40 yards. I thought it was 30, so it makes sense that I missed a little bit low.
10 under, or shot 10 under.
Yeah, and so that was my ground stalking story. I loved it. Even though I missed, even though I didn't put meat in the freezer, it might have been one of my favorite hunts this year.
That's awesome.
It's just like, there's nothing like being eye level with a deer, trying to outsmart them, play in the wind, trying to be quiet, stalking in the snow. I don't know, dude. It's the best time.
There really is nothing like it.
Yeah.
We got to get a black powder rifle. Go to one of those states where it snows early for like muzzleloader.
Yeah.
And just ground stock old school.
Dude.
That'd be really fun.
That would be fun. Yeah, and you can reach out a little bit further with those. But what do you think those shoot about? 100 yards?
I don't know if I'd shoot 100. It's like open sight.
Okay. Yeah, you'd have to be really dialed in.
I don't know. Guys do it. I mean, I know guys who are good at it do it. But
yeah.
I probably treat it like a bow plus.
Bow plus?
Yeah,
like a crossbow.
Yeah, like a crossbow. I treat it like a crossbow.
Yeah.
But that's fun.
Yeah, dude, it was a blast.
If it snows again, you gotta get out there.
Well, this polar vortex you're talking about, maybe it'll bring a little bit of snow.
Be awesome.
Maybe it'd be time. We could deer hunt the evenings and duck hunt the mornings.
Now you're talking.
That'd be a good day.
Be awesome.
So, yeah, so that was my ground hunting story. And then I texted you that. I took some videos as I was kind of sitting there waiting for him to come in. I sent them to you. And you're like, no way. I ground hunted a deer the other day.
Yep.
So tell me your story.
So, same spot.
Down in the flatlands.
Down in the flatlands, which I've never deer hunted anywhere but the Ozarks. So that was new for me. I was sending you videos of like hiking around in the water going, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do here. This is fun. I got a blind as a Christmas present after Rustin's episode.
Oh, really?
So he was talking about a blind and
Yeah.
all of that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to ask for one for Christmas.
I want that.
Hey, Maris, can I have one? I want one for Christmas, right? And so I was kind of excited to figure out the ground blind game for a late season buck. And I get out there, and same farmer who has the duck camp, I've been asking to deer hunt forever, and he's always said no. But this year, for some reason, he was like, yeah, sure, why not? Kill a doe, why don't you?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, what about not a doe?
Yeah.
He's like, if one comes out that you like, take it. It's like, sounds good.
Okay.
Because in fact, I have this field that was all soybean, that has 2 elevated like redneck blinds on it. So how about you hunt those? I was like, well, sure, but I have a bow, and those are great for rifle.
Yeah.
But it's a multi acre field,
Right.
with woods that butts up to woods. So my thought was, I'll at least sit in the redneck blind the first hunt and just see what the deer are doing, if the deer are doing anything. And if they're not, then I'll go into the woods and figure out what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that first evening, I get in that blind, bring my bow, but I'm thinking I'm not even going to touch this thing. I can almost guarantee it. And an hour before dark, next thing I know, I have 16 does in the field.
Oh, wow.
But they're at 300 yards away.
Okay.
And I see where they're coming out. Every single one is coming out from the same spot. 16, though. It looked like a herd of cows. I was taking videos of it. Like, this is unreal. And there's geese and ducks flying over and deer walking out. I had a lot of animals in front of me this week, apparently. It's just a target-rich environment. It's like all these ducks and deer and geese. And so they'll come out. And then within the last 15 minutes of daylight, I see a buck come out. So I'm looking at him through my binoculars, and I'm like, that's a nice buck. And then another one comes out. I was like, that's a nicer buck. Then a third one comes out. I was like, that's a even nicer one. And then I'm not joking, a fourth one. I had 20 deer in the field at one time.
Dude.
I've never seen 20 deer.
That's wild.
In one place at one time before.
That's crazy.
And I kept counting. I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, like, oh my gosh. All came out from the same spot. And it's where the wood line was really straight, but for one spot, it juts out a little bit more, just creates a little bit more of an edge. And that last buck that came out, I was like, that is a buck that I wouldn't even hesitate on. Like, the other one's like, oh, it's a nice deer. That was one that you don't have to think about it. Like, holy smokes, that's a nice deer. And so, obviously, don't take anything. Next day, I go out there and I set up my ground blind, my new ground blind, and go to where I think all those deer are coming out. And I find all their tracks in the mud, and it's all obvious that they're coming out to browse on the green and all that. So I plop that ground blind right at the edge of the woods, where I'm covered by the woods, but it also looks out into the field, but I can tell where they're coming from. And that second sit, last hour before dark, all of those same deer that were in that main group were all coming towards the field at the same time, saw the ground blind, and freaked out.
Yeah.
They all turned and ran. And I'm counting 16, 17 tails taking off all at the same time. Wind was good. It wasn't a scent problem.
Yeah.
It was just a new foreign thing.
Yeah.
So then my thought was, all right, the next day I'm going to let it just sit. I'm not even going to get in it. And then the last evening, day 4, I'll hunt it. Like, maybe that they can pass it and nothing happens and they feel safe. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never hunted with a ground blind.
Yeah.
But it seemed like a good idea.
Yeah.
If they can walk past this.
Did you have your saddle, or you were just like, I just want to try the ground?
Well, I had it, but I was taking my brother-in-law because he's never deer hunted.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was like, Grayson, I want you to come hunt. This will be fun.
Yeah.
And so I should have gotten up in a tree.
Yeah.
If I was really, really after deer,
Right.
I would have found the trail in the woods, gone back a bit, and gotten elevated.
Yeah.
But I wanted to sit in the new blind, and I wanted him next to me. We were having fun.
Yeah.
And so that was our thought. That next evening, we're not going to hunt. We're going to let it kind of soak. Maybe the deer will walk by it that time and
Let
not
it soak.
Yeah, not let it.
Yeah. Let them.
It just they see it, they smell it, and it's like it doesn't freak them out. Whatever. So then last night and the next morning, we got to go home. I was telling him, first legal thing that gets out here, we're gonna take it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And this time, first legal thing that comes out is not a doe, but it's a nice buck. And he is on the highest of high alerts.
Yeah.
Looking at the blind, trying to figure out what it is, all that stuff. He gets to where, and this is where I made a mistake. Rustin said practice. I didn't practice out of ground blind. He gets to the edge of the woods and the field at 31 yards.
Okay.
And as he's coming out into the field, he is covered by some thick brush and bramble. But he was on such high alert getting there, and I could see him through the woods looking at us and all that I should have drawn my bow right there. But my thought was maybe he comes out, feeds for a moment, starts to feel good about everything, and presents me with a bunch of shot opportunities. He doesn't. He comes, then he steps out, and he is perfectly broadside, looking away from me down the like opposite wood line at 31 yards, and my bow isn't drawn. Like, could not be more perfectly broadside. Was right in front of me. Would have been the easiest shot of all time. And I'm holding my bow up, and I go to draw, and as I start making the drawing movement, he whips his head around to the ground blind because it's a foreign object, and I'm sure he could see just enough movement, even though we're in dark and sitting up towards the back of it or whatever. He sees me complete that cycle and is done, is out of there.
Yeah.
And so it's fun, high adrenaline, all that stuff. And then the evening shapes out where it ends up being a bunch of doe come around behind us and still make their way to where they were within shot range. But the only ones that made it close enough to take, like, with an ethical shot were yearling doe, like little puppy dogs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I'm good.
And so
those
that
are
was
good. Those are tender.
Yeah, I mean,
They're small though.
But that's a lot of work for not much meat.
No, you're right.
So that's our hunting story. But after he bolted off, Grayson's all hyped up on adrenaline too, and he's like, "That was awesome. I've never done anything like that. Like, what happened?" I was like,
"Was that his first deer hunt?
First deer hunt ever."
Oh wow!
It's like, we should have drawn when he came out. I've never done it out of a blind before. This is all new.
Yeah.
He was on high alert, all that stuff. He was like, "Why didn't you shoot that deer?" And I was like, "Well, I was trying."
I love that. Why didn't you kill him?
Actively trying to get there, but I really thought he was going to come out and chill out and eat some of the grass and just, if he didn't get spooked until he came out of the field, like, he made it to open field, without bolting.
Yeah,
I thought my odds were really going up.
Yeah,
but once he's turned broadside, I was like, now's the time.
Yeah,
should have drawn as he was coming out. But what do you do?
Well, you can only live and learn.
Yeah.
You can try to make that's the one thing we've talked about that before is just you're gonna make mistakes. Try not to make the same mistake twice.
Yep. And it was a nice deer, but it wasn't the one that I'd seen 2 nights earlier that made me go, "Oh man, like, that's a deer."
Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate.
If it was that deer, I probably would not have played it as safe. I would have, like, first time I had an idea that he couldn't see me, I think my bow would have been drawn.
Yeah.
But this one I was playing the game in your head, but also really thought he was going to chill out.
Yeah.
So I was playing mental gymnastics, which isn't good as a deer hunter.
Yeah.
You got to, like, commit.
You got to commit
and do it.
Be decisive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough to do that. Well, we just told 2 deer stories, and neither one of them were great, like, successful, got the job done. So if you are one of the new listeners who we were talking to at the beginning, we're going to tell some stories like that, and we try to be authentic. We're not going to tell you stories where it's like we always kill the deer, because that's not true.
Definitely not true.
And there's lessons to be learned. I feel like my lesson, I would go back and I would make sure I had my rangefinder.
That's a good lesson.
That's my takeaway from that.
I'd drop my bow.
Yeah.
I'd make it possible.
Yeah, you got to do it.
But yeah, we also kill some deer, so find those episodes. Those are fun.
Yeah, those are good.
Those are a good time.
Those are good. Sweet, man. Well, I'm glad you got down there and glad you made it back safe. I think it's cool to get to go explore down in South Arkansas. It's just a completely different landscape environment, and seeing again, like, it's unique, and they've got cool things going on down there too that we don't have up here. So
yeah, I'm a big fan. Big fan of some farm country.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. All right, transition to kind of wrap up the episode. There's been a few things going on in the Ozarks and things changing from guests that we've had on. And so we really don't have a ton to say other than just like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but things have changed.
Yeah.
So the first one is, and maybe the one that you maybe have seen, maybe the most notable is the director of Arkansas Game and Fish is no longer Austin Booth. We've had him on. He's no longer the director of Arkansas Game and Fish. He is the CEO of Banded now, and he when I don't remember when exactly he stepped down. It was maybe a month or two ago, maybe a month ago. But he's left, so things are changing at Arkansas Game and Fish. With that, Myron Means, who you guys have heard from several times, we've had on the podcast several times.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, we've gone on Bear Den visits with him. He's the Game and Fish, Arkansas Game and Fish, large game or large carnivore biologist, which is basically black bear, but also a little bit of mountain lion. He's no longer at Game and Fish, and I don't think they've officially announced who is backfilling him.
I don't know if they know.
Yeah, I don't think that that's happened yet. So that's a change in, and then the last one is our friends over at Dalley's Fly Shop. Dalley's Fly Shop is closing. It's closed.
Yep.
And so they just had their sale where they were purging everything out of the shop and stuff on discount. At this point, when you're listening, I doubt there's anything left, but maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so Dallas is closing. So a lot of things changing.
A staple.
Yeah.
In the fly fishing world.
Yeah, absolutely. And all three of those guys are guys who I would call, friends, colleagues, obviously people we've talked with and worked with. And yeah, I think all of them were excellent. I mean, Myron Means comes to mind. Just, I don't know, 20 years in that position, has done so much, has given his life, essentially his career, to that position, and has been there along the transformation of, and been a huge part of the most successful reintroduction of a large carnivore in the world. And I mean, I think you have to give hats off to him. The way that he has educated people on that, has told that story, has just done all of the countless hours he's put into that. Awesome. So just wanted to, make sure to say how awesome we think Myron is on this show. And
whoever gets that job has some massive shoes to fill.
100%. 100%. And same for Austin. I think Austin has done a really, really good job. I've been impressed by his ability to address issues that have been kind of around for a long time, but he's made hard decisions, and he certainly, in that position, you don't make everyone happy. You can never make everyone happy, but you do the best you can, and I think he's really given his heart and soul to that position. So, yeah, I think he'll be missed as well in that role. And then Steve Dalley, who we've had on several times, who obviously the namesake of Dalley's Fly Shop. Dalley doesn't actually own Dalley's Fly Shop, which a lot of people may not know. He is kind of the branding of it, or was. And so Steve is not going anywhere. Steve's still fishing. He's still guiding. He's still going to be out there, and he's kind of, I think last I heard, he was forming together some of the guides that were still working there, and they're going to keep doing their thing. So it's not that Steve's going away. It's just there's going to be other fly shops to go to. And so, keep Steve in mind when you're going to go fish over on the White, because he's still out there doing his thing.
Wonder what happens with that building. Like, is it going to be another fly shop?
I don't know. There's been a couple other, there's a few other fly shops that I feel like have opened up in the last year or so, or year or two, that are over there. So maybe not. I really don't know.
Just an ideal location.
It is a great spot.
Like on the way into Cotter.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's that one, I think, I forget the name of it right now, and I'm not looking at my phone here, but it's right as you cross the bridge into Cotter. There's that one right there that I'm pretty sure Dwayne.
Natural State?
Maybe.
Natural State Anglers, I think.
Maybe so. Dwayne did the mural up on there. It might have been the old hotel lodge or something there, but
yeah,
it's like kind of that first building when you walk in or drive in. But that's there, so that's another great location. But yeah, there's still plenty of fishing to be done over there.
Plenty of fishing.
And yeah, we'll stay in touch with Steve and have him back on in the future, I'm sure. He's one of those, you just got to have Steve on every now and then.
Yeah, you got to.
You got to have the the guy from Tasmania with the Aussie accent on to tell some funny fish stories.
You have to.
Or what are you doing?
He's an Ozark legend.
He is. So yeah, that's the news. There's I'm sure there's plenty of other things that we didn't touch on, but thought those were relevant since we've had those guests on, and wanted to keep you on the loop. But we're excited about this upcoming year. This is now we're going into the 3rd year that we've been doing the Ozark podcast. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I think expect more of the same, but expect more because we've got some things in the works that we're excited to announce, and I think we already maybe teased one, so I won't tease it again, with potentially a new show that's coming to our podcast. And we're just going to keep diving in. You know, we did tell some stories about us and deer hunting tonight, but we really tried not to make this podcast about us. This is about the Ozarks, and we want to uncover other people's stories and listen and not just talk all the time. And so we will continue to do that. And, new people find us all the time, and we will continue to bring you great content from the Ozarks. That's what we're trying to do. So thanks for sticking with us. And we always appreciate you guys listening, and we will see you on next week's episode.